Hi everyone, welcome back to Foreign Connect. Today we have another very exciting guest from Silicon Valley. His name is Lomit. He's worked in AI space with emphasizing marketing. He's also been best-selling author of the book called Lean AI. He has also been advisor for multiple companies, advising how to effectively execute marketing with using AI. So we had a very interesting conversation about how companies can use AI to execute their marketing and get the better results. So I hope you will learn a lot from today's episode and let us know how you think. Enjoy. So, you work on very interesting business right now. I kind of want to know, what services do you offer to companies?
Yeah, so I work with a company called IMVU, IMVU, and we're the world's largest virtual reality social network game.
Oh, mm-hmm.
And I've been there for over 4 years, so I head up all of our growth. So I'm responsible for everything related to acquiring new customers, retaining our customers, and more importantly, how to monetize and drive revenue from those customers.
Oh, okay. Very interesting. So we'll have a very exciting, interesting question following up with that. So the first thing I wanted to ask is, what is AI? You said virtual reality is like the biggest service you offer, right? With your company. Like, I also read on your bio that you are expert on AI. What is AI and how can businesses use AI in a smart way?
That's a really good question. So one of the other things that I wanted to mention is that I wrote a book called Lean AI, which has become a bestseller here in the US.
Wow.
And thank you. And the book is really based on everything that we did here at IMVU to really help grow our business. And so, with Lean AI, AI, as you know, is artificial intelligence, and then there's lots of ways that people talk about it, right? But for us, the use case that we use to try and solve with AI is that we get a lot of customer data, just like a lot of businesses that now get a lot of user data, but user data isn't valuable unless you can really extract some value and insights pretty quickly and take action on it. And so that's what we did at IMVU. So, when I joined, we had a pretty big business that was on desktop. It was a desktop gaming app. So, one of the things that I was able to influence was to really drive a lot of growth by moving a business into mobile. So we've become like a mobile first business. But the challenge was that we had data that lived in two different places. Like, we had customer data on the desktop and customer data on mobile. And so, we integrated all of that data into one place. And then once we did that, then we realized that we have so much data that, instead of working with all of like a big data science team doing all of these analysis and then making changes, we had to react a lot quicker and faster. And that's when we sort of ended up building a AI intelligent machine that pretty much enabled us to get a really good holistic view on really understanding who our customers are, where we're spending the money, and how we're acquiring those customers, and figure out how we could get better at personalization in terms of personalizing the experience on our product to engage and retain the customers, and then to really figure out what's the right ways for us to retain and monetize those customers based on the experiences of what they were doing in our product. Wow. And so, we spend millions of dollars in all of these different channels like Google and Facebook and all of these different partners, and they all have some form of AI in their platform. But the difference is that, when you just give them the money, then they will spend it, right? But you want them to spend it as efficiently as possible. So what we found was ultimately, all of these places where we spend money, it's like an exchange where it's all based on supply and demand. So if people are really bidding aggressively, then it drives the price up to try and spend money on quite. And so what we did is we created an AI layer that sat between us and all of these different partners that we that we spend money with. And so our AI machine is automatically making decisions on data in real time to decide if we should be spending our budget on Google or spending it on Facebook or spending it on like 15 or 20 other partners that we work with based on how the exchanges are going. So whether we should be aggressively bidding up or bidding down or bidding across those. And that's really been something a lot of companies haven't done, you know, and that's really enabled us to really grow really quickly because we've been able to find hidden efficiencies across all of these exchanges.
And find the right allocation of the budget you have. I see. Like, can we talk a little bit more about the book then? Like, that's fascinating that you have a book coming out. Like, can you a little bit tell us like what you talk about? Just
So the book is pretty much based on how it's primarily about startups because I've spent my career at startups and it's really about how innovative startups use artificial intelligence to grow. And it's pretty much, like I said, it's about building a lot of these companies that there's not many companies that do it, but the ones that do, they end up building a layer of an AI machine that sits between them and all of these other places where they're spending money. So it's kind of like a day trading. Like, you know, if you're buying stocks and you're day trading, it's about stock prices go up and down. But this machine is kind of looking at the changes in the marketplace and then figuring out when you should be buying and when you should be and when you should be moving and spending in different places. But the other thing that, you know, that it does is it enables us to orchestrate all of these experiments because ultimately, you know, the more A/B tests you can run, the better you can get at figuring out what works and what doesn't work. Before, I used to have a pretty big team and we used to run maybe a couple of hundred tests a month. Now, what I ended up doing is, you know, I ended up, once we have this machine, I ended up making my team a lot smaller. So I have a really small team of about 5-6 people now, but we're running like 5,000 to 10,000 experiments a month because the machine is doing all of this execution for us. And so, you know, the machine is really enabling us to get really smart about figuring out, who our right customers are, what's the right message that we should be targeting them with, what's the right experience that we should customize on the product when they come in, and what's the right offer to get them to spend money with us. So we have simultaneously about 10,000 different experiments going on throughout the month, and that that's really amazing because it really gives us continuous insights into really figuring out how to get better, faster, and smarter about driving the most personalized experience to acquire a customer.
I see. So that actually leads to my second question. It sounds like there's a lot of utility in AI in the space of sales and marketing, but I was wondering, like, if you can go a little bit deeper into like how can companies use AI in sales and marketing, but also like operation or like different functions of business. Is there any other case you can think of?
Yeah. So there's lots of cases. One case is, as I mentioned, everybody has, who spends money on a marketing budget. The question is, how do you spend and invest that budget as efficiently as possible? So that's one use case. The other use case is when you acquire customers, you want to try to figure out what's the best user journey to try and get them to engage with your product that will drives the best lifetime value, which is drives the best quality users to stick around in your product. And so we use that with AI. What we do is, because we're a social network, so as you can imagine, people that go to social networks, whether it's like Twitter or anything else, first thing they try to want to do is get you to register. And then once you register, then they want you to try and figure out what your interests are, who your friends are, so you invite your friends. And so our social network is like a virtual reality network. So it's about creating virtual friends, so not real friends. So what we try to do is, when somebody registers, the first thing we try to do is we give them like these free credits that gives them the ability to customize the look and feel of their avatar. People love customizing their avatar. Once they customize their avatar, then we give them recommendations on who to make friends or potential friends, recommendations on different chat rooms, recommendations on creating different virtual worlds and enjoying different experiences. And so, all of these are different actions and behaviors that we try to encourage. And our AI machine is pretty much doing all of this, where it's looking at where the user is in their life cycle and is providing these different experiments to figure out how can we get somebody from one step to the next step to the next step to the next, because ultimately we have these like ideal like user journey over 7 days, that if somebody goes through and does these 7 steps, then we know that they will stick around a lot longer than somebody who doesn't go through that. So that's another thing where it helps us. Another and then the other area, I mean there's lots of areas, but in terms of related to business and marketing, every business has customers that eventually stop using your product, or and so our machine helps us to predict churn, which is basically when a customer starts getting inactive and they're not really spending too much time on our product. And so we try to look at behavior signals, and the machine is able to identify. So we come up with a score, and like, this person is like at a high risk of leaving the product, or this person is at a low risk. And so if somebody's at a high risk, then we end up creating a whole new segment of experiences that we can start messaging them to try and get them to start spending more time in the product.
I see. So all these are defined by the incremental changes and incremental experiences, and then you get the data as a result of these experiences, and then you implement whatever.
Yeah, so everything starts with the data, because the machine's looking at data based on what somebody's doing or not doing, and then from the data we come up with different hypotheses of different ways to try and engage with a customer, and then with that we get more data. So there's one word that I use a lot in my book. It's called the velocity of learning, which is kind of like this velocity where as you spend more money, then you acquire more customers. As you acquire more customers, then you get more customer data. As you get more data, then you're able to get more insights from the data to try and run different hypotheses. So you continue to run more and more experiments, and you can get more and more smarter around learning what works and what doesn't work. And then you kind of, it becomes like an infinite loop, because as you keep getting smarter, you keep bringing in more customers, you keep getting better at retaining customers, and you get better at monetizing. And all of those insights kind of go into, for example, for us, we're a global company. So, what we do in the US is completely different to what we, like South Korea is a big market for us. What we do in Korea is different to what we do in Brazil. And so this machine is behaving and learning for users coming from all these different countries that we're in, and it localizes all of these experiences based on where somebody's coming from, which is a lot of work, which is why having a machine really helps us execute really well.
Right. I see. I definitely see that, like, you can do what was impossible before without the AI is now really like becoming possible. Like, that's really fascinating. So I want to talk about digital transformation, which is still sort of a new idea to a lot of corporations here in Japan. And definitely a lot of corporates are looking at creating this digital transformation, right? So for me, my question is, how can we companies make the digital transformation using AI?
Yeah, the big challenge in any company is whether it's digital transformation or any transformation. Change is always challenging, right? Because people get used to doing something. And so, when it comes to digital transformation, to really sort of, embrace a lot of this AI technologies, what I have found, and I wrote about this in a book, and it's from talking to other people that went through the same sort of experience. It's really good to start identifying use cases that can provide quick wins for the business. By wins, what I mean is don't try to work on a use case which will take a long time to develop, and there's no guarantee that it will be able to pay back for itself pretty quickly.
Mm.
But if you work on use cases like with us, we identified use cases around sales and marketing, because that's a big area of where the company spends a lot of money to drive growth. And so we know that if we can find efficiencies in getting better about how we spend our money and acquire customers, then we'll be able to pay back for that project pretty quickly, and it's easier to get universal support for that. So the starting point is really to try and get the leadership in the company, starting from the CEO or somebody who is a C-level executive to champion this and get behind this, because then it makes it a lot easier. Because if you get support at the top, then you can kind of use that support to try and get middle management to buy into it, and then everybody else, and identify a use case or that can provide value and show a win pretty quickly. And once you identify the use case, the other decision you want to try to make is, do you want to try to build this, or do you want to try to buy kind of a technology like a SaaS technology and try to implement that? What we ended up doing, is we ultimately ended up like buying a solution that had most of what we were looking for, not everything, but it was with a startup company that we were able to influence and get them to customize that whole solution to really work for us. And what happened, the benefit of doing that versus trying to dedicate all of our resources was that it was less risk on the business, because we didn't have to take people that were working on projects related to our business to work on this project. So that that's another good way to encourage transformation is to look at partners who can kind of help you get there faster. And I think the most important thing is to really get universal support in the organization. And the best way to do that is to really do you understand what I mean by the word empathy? It's so being like really being an empathetic leader is really important, that I found, because it's really hard to get people to come over if you don't really listen to what their concerns are and try to address that. And so by having open dialogues to really understand what are the resistant points, it's reaching it from trying to understand somebody by being open to really listening and being empathetic really helps you to find middle ground. Because for the most part, a lot of concerns people have are just because they're scared, like, how is this going to impact their job? And for the most part, a lot of this just comes from people just not knowing how this is going to impact. And so what we tried to do was ultimately we invested in training to try and train the people that I had on my team, because ultimately their role was, instead of doing a lot of the manual work before, it was really to try and do more higher strategic creative work to really support the machine. And so ultimately it required an upgrade in some skills which we ended up investing in. And so that really helped get really good support, because then people realized it wasn't about this was going to come and take away jobs. This was really going to come to help the business grow faster.
Right.
And
so then I have, I guess, two following up questions with that statement. The first one is, what do you think will happen to businesses who do not make the digital transformation right now at this age? And then the second question is, we talk about a lot of like incremental changes, incremental experiences, right? Like, where is the line of judging, okay, well, this way doesn't work, this way works? Like, there's that very like instant thinking in there, right? Like, where is that line? Because in traditional business, we learn to have a lot of patience in many things, right? But then technology literally is disrupting our pattern of behavior in this picture. So I'm very curious, like, how you kind of like decide something is not working, something versus something is working.
Yeah. So, so one thing I would say, like COVID-19 is impacting everyone, and the good and bad of COVID-19 is, it's making a lot of businesses really think about their operations, and in two ways. One is like, how can we be more efficient in keeping a business running? How can we save money, and how are we going to make money? Because those questions are very paramount. And so, another thing to come out of COVID-19 is people that really weren't comfortable with digital have had to spend more time on digital. So that transformation that I was foreseeing would probably happen 3 to 5 years is now starting to happen now, where there's more people that now are being forced to behaviors around consuming content online, but purchasing online, spending a lot of their time socializing online. So the transformation has already started. And so, I feel that, in terms of digital transformation, it really comes down to, depending on whatever business you are, but where do most of your customers spend their time? And most of your customers are now spending their time on digital channels. So if you want to be a successful business, not now, but to continue to be successful, in the future, you have to be where your customers are. So that is a natural progression where, companies just have to take that step. But the other question you brought up was an even better question, which is, with traditional business models, there's a lot more patience, right? Because it takes time to build up to really figure out if something's working or not. The difference between traditional and digital businesses is that you get a lot faster feedback. The feedback loop is a lot quicker, so if something's working or not working. And the reason being, because data now is coming in at a much faster velocity than it used to. Because before, data used to come in, but you wouldn't really get around to really analyzing it till maybe a couple of weeks or a month, and then you sort of know what's going on. Now you get in all of this data in real time. So you can, the big difference between a traditional business model and a digital first business model is being agile, because you get in so much signals to really know if something's working or not working. It's not a matter of it's not working and that's it, we give up. But what being agile is taking the data and figuring out, do we go in this direction or do we go in this direction? But it's all about being agile and being flexible. And that's really the success to becoming truly embracing digital transformation, is to just have that agile mindset. And that's really practiced a lot here in Silicon Valley in San Francisco, because a lot of startups are sort of built with this whole mantra of test, learn, and iterate. Continue to keep testing, continue to keep figuring out what's working, and iterate based on what the data is telling you.
I see. Well, I think we had a lot of valuable lessons today from you. Thank you very much for coming on the show. Before I let you go, I also want to ask where people can find you.
Yeah, so the best place to find me on LinkedIn. If people reach out to me on LinkedIn, my name is Lomit, Lomit Patel, Patel. I publish a lot of content on there, so people are welcome to connect with me or follow me. I also have a blog where I publish a lot of content around all of this area around digital transformation. So you can find me. My blog is very easy. It's my name too. It's Lomit, LOMITPATEL.com.
Okay.
And then, as I mentioned, my book, my book's available online. If I'm not sure if Amazon's available, but it's available on Amazon and other digital publishers.